This is the Fun Belt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts, the Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howl Razor, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belt.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's We are back as we close out the regular season for Sun Belt Conference football. Shane Metlin, he can't live with it, Jeremy, that James Madison did not win the East.
He's all upset.
They fell in the finale, double overtime to Marshall, sending Marshall to the Sun Belt Conference Championship. I forget the sponsor name that we're supposed to say as what it is. I think it's the Hercules Tires Sun Belt Conference Championship game. That's way too much of a mouthful.
That is exactly what it is, though. And you know what? I've seen bigger mouthfuls. And you know what? If they would go ahead and sponsor our podcast, Tibbs, we'd be more than happy to say the full name, right?
Possibly. I mean, it would definitely be better than, as we go to the Sun Belt Conference website, we see JMU alumni, Visit Lafayette, the Troy Alumni Association. It's crazy. But we have even better than Shane. And yes, I can say that because he's not here.
All right.
The Golden Pipes, the elder statesmen of the Sun Belt.
Oh.
If they were ranking employees of the Sun Belt Conference, I think he would be employee number 4.
Number 4. Who would be ahead of him?
Wright Waters.
Okay.
Boobas.
Okay. All right, Boobas.
We'll put Carl Benson up there as well.
All right. Okay. All right. I got you. I smell it.
The voice of your Raging Cajuns there, Jeremy. Jay Walker joins us.
What, we got Jay Walker? Holy shit.
Without us having to actually see him. We just get to hear him.
No, we don't have visual. As far as we know, this is a Jay Walker impersonator.
That is correct.
Jay, say something. Confirm your identity.
I do my voice very well. I impersonate myself better than anybody.
Is there something you can say that only we would know that would confirm your identity?
Yeah, no.
We've spent some intimate moments in New Orleans. You could probably, spill the beans on that.
I signed an NDA at your request.
That's right. I had my lawyer present with me.
There you are.
In New Orleans.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is always fun. It's the most fun podcast I have ever been on, and that's why they call it the Fun Belt Podcast.
Well, okay.
Hey, Jeremy, the check cleared.
Yeah, no kidding. Shit. I love it.
But only Shane and Tibbs are getting a cut. I
do this for free, man. I don't do it for the money.
Okay.
I'm independently wealthy. Money means nothing to me, Jay. Only the satisfaction of Sunbelt fans. That's my currency.
There you go.
He spent all his money on a stupid smoking jacket,
which I'm not wearing right now. It's that
well, nobody wants to see your jacket smoking. I'm just saying.
So, Jay, it was absolute chaos this year in the Sun Belt Conference overall, where it came down to the final week to find out who was going to be hosting, who was going to be in the championship game. But I think by about the midpoint of the season, we kind of realized the Cajuns were probably going to be the contenders and not the pretenders in the West. Is that kind of how you saw it coming into this year, or were you a little skeptical of that over-under of the Cajuns coming into the 24 season?
I think what made me a little skeptical was the schedule itself, because you're going on the road to play a Wake Forest team that's been in a bowl game more often than not the last few years. You've got a Tulane team that won a New Year's Six Bowl 2 years ago, and that's part of your non-conference schedule. Then in the league, you draw App State and Coastal Carolina. App State picked to win the East, and Coastal being Coastal. And then on top of that, Texas State is the favorite in the West, and you've got to go to San Marcos. So I looked at the schedule and I said, this is not a very kind schedule. As it turned out, Wake Forest had slipped from what they'd been the last couple of years. And, App State, with everything they went through in North Carolina, turned out not to be quite as good. And Coastal was not quite as good. And, as I said at the end of the game in San Marcos, Texas State still can't beat the Cajuns. I mean, that's like 12 in a row now. So it's almost like Arkansas State and ULM playing. So, I looked at the projected 8.5, and I said it might be tough to get there because of the schedule, not because of the talent, but because of the schedule. And I thought they navigated the schedule extremely well. And now, as I look back on it, you wind up losing to Tulane because of a pick six and a kickoff return. And then you lose to South Alabama, and you lose more than the game. You lose your quarterback for the rest of the season. So, they're 10-2, and they're not far away, maybe 3 plays from being undefeated. Now, that would have been a bit of a surprise for me. But
first of all, Jay,
this being Mike's third year, and it was the year he was kind of pointing to from the beginning, I think he believed they were going to be a really good football team, and he was right.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I didn't buy the hype at all. I thought I didn't see where the Cajuns were going to make a dramatic improvement over this. What was it, 6 wins that they had in 2023? But everybody else seemed to see it. And then, but you have to admit, Jay, that it wasn't just losing the quarterback that you lost with South Alabama. Man, you really lost that opportunity to be in that college football playoffs conversation. I mean, it really looked like there seemed to be a moment there where the Cajuns really could have even done more with this season if they hadn't lost to South Alabama. Does that sort of grind you in any way?
No, not at all. I'm not one of those guys that thinks about what could have been. The college football playoff, by its very nature, is a long shot for everybody that's not in a Power 4 conference. Now, somebody is going to go ahead and get the little doggy bone and get invited to the party. But in our league, if you're going to be the representative in the college football playoff, chances are you got to have a 0 in the loss column. So, game day would put up that logo, a percentage chance, and our logo was up there for a couple of weeks, and that was great.
Yeah, that was nice. It's good for the league.
But the reality of the situation was you lost a game in the third week of the season. And it was to someone in a peer conference, that being Tulane in the American. So it was going to be a pretty big hill to climb whether you beat South Alabama or not.
Yeah, I looked at that Tulane game too. That being at home for the Cajuns just seemed like a sort of a lost opportunity there. But even at that point, though, Jay, I was even thinking, well, I still don't think the Cajuns are as good as people claim. Turned out they were the most balanced team in the Sun Belt, Jay. How did that happen from 6 wins to becoming the most balanced team, good on offense, good on defense? How did that happen?
I think the philosophy here is different than it is at a lot of other schools, not only in our league, but in our group of 5. We don't have a ton of NIL money. And so the whole thing was this. Mike said from the very beginning, we are going to build this with high school talent. We're going to bring them in. We're going to develop them. We're going to coach them up. And we're going to hope to love them so much that they don't want to leave. And, we have lost a few players each year to the transfer portal, a couple to 3. But if you notice, if you go and you look at the Cajuns too deep, you're not going to find a lot of transfers.
Sure.
Most of these guys are guys who came in from the very beginning and are in their 3rd, 4th, 5th year with the program. So these were some veteran guys who have played a lot of football that had great chemistry, and they have just gone out together. But that was Coach Desermo's plan from the very beginning. He said, it's the only way we're going to win consistently. So this business of, you're going to run 25 guys off and sign 25 new ones. That was never a part of the plan. And I don't know of too many schools in the league that have tried to do it that way. It has worked here. Now, this is a veteran team, but there are a lot of seniors on this team. But at the same time, every recruiting class that they've signed, they have been, for the most part, able to retain and develop. And if you do that and you have patience, you've got a chance to have some success. And now this is now the 7th straight year the Cajuns have been bowling. It's the 5th time in 7 years that they've qualified for the championship game. This plan is working because it was the same plan Billy Napier had when he became the head coach. So this is working here. I don't know if it works everywhere, but it's working here.
Jay, you talk about the Cajuns really having the same guys year after year after year because they bring in the high school guys, so they get a chance to kind of mature. You kind of learn their names. You learn kind of their personalities and such. But what does it mean when you have like the Zion Chris that leave the Cajuns and go off? Does that hurt the league? And specifically, we both this past weekend got to see probably one of the best running backs that we've had in the league in a while, in Ahmad Hardy, who is jumping into the portal to go wherever and make some money. But I feel like that really hurts the league as a whole because you don't have that outside audience coming in to check out these players. Have you kind of seen that happen as well?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think in the case of Zion Chris, I think everybody was disappointed because he was dynamic. I mean, he was a dual threat guy that could do a lot of things. And then you look at our depth chart and you've got a guy who was the starter until he was injured. And then a second guy who was the starter at the end of the year, and they're both back. And so you feel like, okay, at the quarterback position, we're going to be okay. Now, if they didn't have anybody behind Zion that had a lot of experience, that would have been quite a blow. But you know what, Dusty? That's what college football at this level is like now. If you bring in a guy, and ULM certainly had a guy this year. I mean, Hardy was as good a freshman running back as we've had in this league. I'm going to go back to Tyrell Fenroy, the last time that there was a freshman running back that was that good. But you know that if it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen next year. And somebody's going to come and get them. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that you're going to be able to do about it. Now, the thing with NIL, and nobody in this league has got a lot of money, all right? What the Cajuns are doing with their NIL money is they're not going out and offering some transfer some money to come in. They're taking that NIL money and they're using it to retain the players that they have. Now, nothing you can do about Hardy, okay, because he's going to get 6 figures to go play somewhere. And there's nothing you can do about that. But if you've got a guy that you can give a little money to show that he's appreciated and put him in an atmosphere in a locker room that's got tremendous chemistry where all the players get along and they all love the coaching staff and the coaching staff loves them, then the money's not quite as big a deal. And the Cajuns have been able to do that. That's how they've succeeded in keeping some of the talent that they have.
And have you seen that kind of hold true across all the sports? Obviously, softball, another big sport there in Lafayette, as well as baseball. Has it kind of carried over to those sports as well?
Yeah, it has. And a matter of fact, Matt Deggs, the baseball coach, had a big meeting with the baseball people and said, look, this is how we're going to do it. And everything with NIL is performance-based. And everybody on the roster has a chance to make a little NIL money, depending on what they do. Now, some of it's on the field, some of it's in the classroom, some of it has to do with the hours of community service you put in. But everybody on the baseball team has got a chance to make a little bit of NIL money. Now, they're not going to make a lot, but they're going to have enough to keep gas in their car and be able to take their girlfriend out to eat and things like that that they might not be able to do otherwise. And sometimes with some sports, all you got to do is be shown that you're appreciated. And that goes a long way with a lot of kids. Softball's going to do it the same way. You know, Jerry Glasgow left, went to Texas Tech, pays the pitcher at Stanford $1.2 million, and then throws some NIL money at half of our roster. Well, here comes Allison Habits, who's an alumnus, who's a former All-American, who spent 25 years at Alabama, went to the College World Series 14 times, won a national championship, but she's just a little girl from Crowley, same hometown as Tony Robichaux. So she's got those small town, hometown values, and she's going to work NIL pretty much the same way as Matt Deggs is going to do it with baseball.
Jumping outside to the league as a whole, maybe I'm biased there, Jay, but I really feel that the story this year of the surprise team was ULM, and
Sure.
probably the biggest disappointment team was App State. What was kind of your thoughts, knowing as you traveled around the league and got to take in a lot of these games?
There was only one bad football team in this league this year, and that was Southern Miss. And they're going to hire a new coach, try to turn things around there. You know, Troy, the last few games was much better. Now, you know, they got hit by the portal. They got hit by a coaching change. They had a lot of new folks. You know, ULM for many years, when you said, okay, you know, who's the weakest team in the Sun Belt? Well, ULM won that crown. But guess what? They were competitive against anyone. They won 5 games this year. They're probably about 3 plays away from winning 8 in Brian Vincent's first year. So when I look at the league this year, I don't know that we had a team that was as good as a couple of those App teams, or maybe that Coastal team that they had under Jamie Chadwell. But I don't know that there was any bad football played this year, with possible exception of Hattiesburg. Even the teams that finished near the bottom of the league, they had their shining moment, and you couldn't just say, okay, we're playing so-and-so this week, so that's going to be an easy win. This league may not have had the penultimate team in the league, but it was a solid league from top to bottom, as solid maybe as the Sun Belt's ever been.
Even though we're only sending 8 teams into the bowl season, unlike last year where it was 12.
Yeah, but you had like 11 teams were 6-6. So
yeah, I know. So Jay, big game coming up this upcoming weekend. Cajuns are going to host the potential future head coach of the aforementioned Southern Miss Golden Eagles there in Charles Huff and the Marshall Thundering Herd. What's kind of your take on this game? What do you feel are some of the keys that each side needs to be able to try to lift the big hardware there from Keith Gill?
First of all, I do think that Marshall was probably the best team in the East. You know, the game that they lost, which almost kept them out of the championship game, was almost a fluke. I mean, they had 23-3 with 7 minutes left, and they've already knocked out the number 1 quarterback. And Georgia Southern finds this way to come back and win that game. And, you know, if Marshall, you know, doesn't make the 2-point conversion and they go to another overtime, then we're not having this conversation. We're talking about how Georgia Southern is playing in Lafayette this weekend. But when you look at Marshall compared to the rest of the teams in the East, I think the best team in the East is representing the league. I think that Marshall has got talent on both sides of the football. You know, I don't know. Can everybody hear this podcast? Because I don't know who that idiot is who's now the athletic director at Marshall, but the fact that he hasn't signed Charles Huff to a long-term contract is a head scratcher, and he needs to take his ego and put in his pocket and say, you know what? I didn't treat this guy right, and I got to go pay him now. Because first of all, Charles Huff's a good football coach. Secondly, he's a good man. And I think that he's been badly mistreated at Marshall. And I know he wants to stay there. But man, it just goes to show you he's a better man than I am, because on Sunday morning after the championship game, I would go to the AD and tell him to stick it. And he still might. He still might. I think they're a well-coached football team. I think Braylon Braxton causes a lot of problems because he's a big, strong kid with a good arm, but they put a lot of packages in for him to run the football. They've got, speaking of running the football, they got a couple of 3 running backs, all of whom are good. If there's a question about Marshall, I think it's on the other side of the football. I think that there are some things that maybe you can exploit on their defense, but they also have the best defensive player in the league. So, the best team in the East is playing the best team in the West, in my opinion, which is kind of the way it should be. Marshall's as good as anybody we've had on the schedule this year, I think. And that includes Tulane, that includes Wake Forest, and that includes Texas State.
It's funny that you say that the best team in the West and the best team in the East are playing. That wasn't always the case in the Sun Belt, especially in recent years with James Madison not being allowed to participate. And James Madison clearly had some great teams and weren't allowed to do that championship game. Who do you think, when we started this season, did you have Marshall even on your radar? I think some people did. Like, I remember Phil Steele came on this program, was really high on Marshall. Not everybody was. What was your thought going into the season, and how do you feel like what surprised you as the season wore on?
No, Marshall wasn't really on my radar very much, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, so surprising. Quietly won 7 games in the Sun Belt.
App had been, become the favorite in the East, and I understood why. Despite the fact that James Madison lost a very good coach and a lot of good players, I still felt like they were, until somebody went out and beat them, my opinion was they were the team to beat in the East. Until, if they had the best record 2 years in a row, and if you were just going to, they got a different coach and new players. I've seen teams with a different coach and a lot of new players still go out and have excellence on the football field.
Absolutely.
So my thought was, it's James Madison until somebody beats him. And no, Marshall really wasn't on my radar that much. And look, and they're sitting there with 2 weeks to go in the season. They got to go to Old Dominion, and they got to go to James Madison. And I'm not sure they're going to win either one of those games, but they won them both. So they've earned the right to be there. And they have shown over an 8-game conference schedule that they were the best team in the league. And so they deserve to be there. If I were to sit there and go ahead and watch film again from the East, I probably would have said Marshall and James Madison after watching more games. But I'm still not sure. James Madison, they went 4-4, and I'm still not sure they weren't the best team in the East. I mean, they were good. But hey, it worked out the way it worked out. I mean, look, if we were going to crown champions before the season started, G.J. Kinney would have gotten a much bigger raise than he did.
Speaking of G.J. Kinney, Jay Walker, I got to ask you this question. Who is the most disappointed fan base in the Sun Belt right now?
Probably App State.
Okay.
Because their fan base is their fan base. And I made the comment to somebody on a show yesterday after the news came out about Sean Clark.
Sure.
App State measures their success by championships. And when they don't win the championship, their fans are not happy. Now that James Madison is in the league, their fan base might wind up being like that. But I'm telling you, there's not another program that if they don't win it every year, their coach is on the hot seat. I mean, that App State fan base has a ton of expectations. And guess what? Whoever gets that job is going to walk right smack dab into the middle of it. I'm sure that the Texas State fan base is a little bit disappointed this year because, They were favored to win the West. And I don't say this to be demeaning to anybody, but at the same time, what's Texas State ever won in football in the Sun Belt? So if they were coming off a couple of championships and favored to win, then yeah, I would get it. But they've never won anything in football here. So I think it wasn't so much expectations as it was a season of great hope. And I think there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I'm going to have to swing it to Texas State only because Appalachian State has known success. So that fan base sort of understands, that high and low. Texas State fans, this is like something new for them. They were probably looking at that beginning of the season where people were like picking Texas State to make a run for that spot in the college football playoffs, and definitely the idea that they were going to run away with the West and thinking, oh my God, everybody's saying we're great. We must be great. And then to have like that reality kind of tumble down, those hopes and dreams shatter to the earth. I just feel like that must have hurt more than Appalachian State, who can at least go back and go, well, we have some titles. We'll be back.
But I don't think their fan base looks at it like that, Jeremy. I don't. I mean, I don't know how many trips you've made to Boone. That's a different group up there now.
And
I say that with the utmost respect and affection because I love going up there.
You better.
No, you know what?
I'll come down and get you, Jay.
You know what? I equate Texas State to, and you're going to be able to relate to this.
Okay.
Arkansas State and Louisiana in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
When you've been not worth a crap for a long time. And then 2011 comes around and Hugh Freeze comes in and Mark Hudspeth comes in. And now all of a sudden these teams are in a bowl game, for crying out loud. Can you imagine that? And then they come back. And if you look at the attendance figures Texas State had when they were still relevant this year, when they were basically selling out that stadium, that's what it was in Jonesboro and in Lafayette. It was like you almost didn't know how to act. It was something that was so incredibly new. And even if your team went out and went 7-5 like Texas State did, maybe you were disappointed that you didn't win the championship. But you had just had your first bowl experience a year before. So you weren't going to get quite as angry as you would, let's say, now.
Yeah, see, I'll look back at my experience in 2012 when Gus Malzahn took over the program. Let me tell you, the excitement around that moment, the hype that was placed amongst the fan base. I mean, we were just bouncing it off each other until it became like this enormous snowball of arrogance. When we lost the opening game to Oregon, who I think they ended up being like a national championship contender, we lost to Oregon, and I was so angry. I ripped the Red Wolves sticker off of my car, balled it up and threw it away, and went to bed. That's how angry I was. But those were my expectations. I was expecting to beat Oregon, Jay. That's how, those preseason expectations can do to you. When you're being told that you're going to be the bee's knees of college football, like Texas State was, those fans have got to be devastated.
I'll tell you, Billy Napier's final season. We're preseason ranked in the top 25. We're opening the season at Texas, and I'm just here to tell you that our fan base fully expected to go to Austin and beat them. And
I remember that
first year. And then not only did you not beat them, but you didn't play very well.
No.
And things didn't. And our fan base was PO'd. But guess what? They got over it when they won the next 13 games.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, 2012, we won the Sun Belt Championship.
Right. When Malzahn got, after Hugh Freeze left after 1 year, and you were able to get a guy like Gus Malzahn, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now we didn't, when Billy Napier got the job, we said, where is he coming from? Because I'll tell you, we thoroughly expected and were shocked when Brent Pry didn't get that job.
Wow.
Because Brent had been a defensive coordinator at UL in the past. He had family back here in Lafayette. He went after the job big time, and he's at Penn State, for crying out loud. And then all of a sudden we hear Billy Napier's been offered the job, and all of our fan base said, we don't know who that is. Arizona State? Seriously?
God, I thought he was a great hire.
Oh, no, he was a great hire. And I'll tell you, the day that I met him,
yeah,
I knew that Brian Maggard had hit the mother lode.
Yeah.
I knew the day that I met him. And I want to give Brian Maggard a little credit here. He took a lot of heat for naming Michael Desimo to replace Billy Napier.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and I thought,
that
was an underwhelming.
They're taking the cheap way out.
That's what I thought.
He's a local guy. He says he's never coached anywhere but here.
Yeah.
Why do you go? Yeah, and then you go 6-6, 6-6, and I said before the season started that I thought it was a big year for Mike because they couldn't take a step back. With the schedule they had, they might not be a lot better, but they couldn't afford to take a step back. But I'll tell you, the one guy who never wavered in his belief that Michael Desimo would come in and have a chance to win a championship, and that's Brian Maggard, the athletic director. He never wavered from the decision that he made to hire Mike Desimo. And Brian is a really, really smart guy, and he's a very likable guy. And I'm really happy for him because you know what? Ain't nobody went up to him this year and said, boy, you made a mistake hiring that dude.
Tibbs, have you ever had a season at ULM that the expectations poisoned you for the rest of the season?
I think the 2013 season, because you were coming in off of that 8-win season. You had gone to your first ever bowl game. And so you wanted to kind of parlay that success into bigger, better things the next year, which, if I'm not mistaken, in 13, we opened up a game at Oklahoma that didn't go very well.
But were you kind of expecting to do well? Like, okay, this is the team that's going to surprise Oklahoma?
I think I'm ruined. I honestly do not go into any season or any game with any expectations.
Yeah.
I just sit back and enjoy the show.
Let me tell you. When Colton Browning was the quarterback at ULM,
the legendary Colton Browning.
Well, and you know what? You can say that with any tone of voice you want to. Okay, that's a man now, and they won 8 games in 2012, and they beat a ranked team and almost beat a second one. And I remember later in his career, and it was his senior year, and ULM wasn't that good. All right, and I was talking with, and Dusty's going to know the name. I was talking to Moon Griffon. Moon is a graduate of ULM, and he has a syndicated state politics talk show. He's pretty well known in Louisiana. And he was at the game, and he said, man, y'all are going to kill us. I said, let me tell you something. As long as number 15 has a ball in his hand, ULM's got a chance to win. And ULM won the game that day. And what happens? 2 years ago, we go up to Monroe for the first conference game. Who walks out for the coin toss? Colton Browning. And guess who whipped our ass that day? ULM. I'm telling you, all you got to do is say his name. I would hire that dude. If I'm Brian Vincent, I'm hiring Colton Browning to come and do nothing.
He's a hype man. He's a hype man. That's all he is.
He's radiating luck.
Look, okay, Jeremy, the name Ryan Applin means a lot at Arkansas State.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I would have been hard-pressed if I would have had to choose between Ryan Applin and Colton Browning. That's how much respect I got for that kid.
Well, I will tell you that Ryan Applin has beat him like 3 times. So
doesn't matter. I'm telling you, that
Colton
that
Browning was
dude
great.
that dude by himself was capable of going out and beating anyone. And I had mad respect for both of those guys. And of course, Ryan now is over at Georgia Southern, but man,
Where is
I don't
he?
even
Now?
want to
Where's
hear Colton
Browning?
Browning's name when we start to think about playing ULM, because if he ever comes back, or if they ever hire him to go in the locker room and like rub everybody on the top of the head before the game, we might be in some trouble.
You're making him sound like he's buried under a pyramid somewhere, and if somebody says the cursed words, he's going to crawl out of the grave and destroy ULL.
Do you I don't know if you read Superman comic books.
Of course.
There was the guy whose name was all consonants, and
Yes.
if he showed up, the only way that you could
Nicholas
get
for
rid of him
whatever
was
reason.
for him to say his name backwards.
Yeah.
That's Colton Browning. I'm telling you.
He was a being from the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
Came every 30 days. Hell yeah, I know that guy.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
But
Jay,
no, I had expectations for ULM every year he was there. I thought he was really, really good.
yeah, like I said, maybe I'm just ruined, but I go into every game every season just I'll coach speak it. I go into every game every season just looking for a 1-0 game. Like if ULM opens up the season this year, it beats Jackson State, and that's it. It'd be like they beat Jackson State. They were supposed to.
Tibbs, tell me though, you did not feel the arrogance just a little bit at 5-1? You felt that tingle, that little spark inside your soul, that sort of.
He had that tingle, and his wife said, "Not tonight, honey." I can relate though to what Dusty's saying. I told Coach Des last night. This is my 33rd year doing Cajun football. You never, ever, 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 one, take winning for granted, or two, think winning is easy, because it's not. I remember from 1997 to 2001, Cajuns were 9-45-1. I will never, ever take success for granted, ever, because I had to live through that. And there's some folks that said, "Man, what's it like? You're calling football for a team that has great success." And I want to look at them and say, "They owe me, damn it." I was there through the dark times, and you don't take winning for granted. And I'm with Dusty. Even now that the Cajuns are having success, I go into every game hoping we wind up 1-0. And because winning is wonderful, but it doesn't always happen.
See, I set myself up the opposite way, Jay. I look at every year we're going to be 12-0.
And that's why you write all these things for the internet, and you're pissed off all the time.
That's right.
And why you're constantly buying Red Wolf stickers, and why whatever company stock that is, I need to know who it is so I can buy it, because it's just going to take off.
I ripped off the sticker, and you know what I did the next morning? I had a little party that day. It was a watch party for that game. That morning, I got up, I picked up all the beer cans, I crushed them, found that sticker. It was still intact. Put it back on the car. Set myself up for an 11-win season.
And then he went outside and reclaimed all of the beer cans, and he put them all in the backs and added to them every time Arkansas State won a football game.
I almost had the same reaction when we lost to Western Kentucky that year, but that's another story. So, all right. So obviously you're calling this game, Jay. Do you guys expect a big crowd?
Well, you can't have too big a crowd because you only got half a stadium.
I know, yeah. So
the official capacity for the game is 25,000, and that's counting the hill that is in the the north end zone where folks can go and bring a blanket and sit. Okay, I think actual seating, you've got room for right at 20,000 people. I certainly hope that there's a big crowd for the game. I know that the last time we hosted in 2021, people at App State that watched it on TV said, "Man, half your stadium is empty." And I said, "Yeah, it's because we hold twice as many as you do."
Ooh,
We set a championship game record of 31,000 plus, which is bigger at the time than the capacity at App State or Coastal Carolina or Georgia Southern or most of those other places.
yeah.
Because at the time, the official capacity at Cajun Field was 42, counting the hill. Um, I don't know. I quit trying to predict attendance and stuff a long time ago because our fan base is somewhat we have a weather guy that's been here forever. His name's Rob Perillo, and everybody loves him. And if Rob Perillo on Tuesday says there's a pretty good chance of rain on Saturday, they're calling their friends up and saying, come over, we'll barbecue. I think this team deserves to have a great crowd. I think that one of the things I love about Mike is he's done everything the right way. One of the things I love about Brian Maggard, all of our coaches, and I'm talking about from football down to men's and women's tennis, all of our coaches have a high moral compass. They all want to win and they want to do it the right way. They want look, we were second in the nation in community service hours in athletics last year. And some of our coaches were mad that we weren't first. If you go out and you do things the right way and demand that from your student athletes on and off the field, and you have success, people should embrace you. So I'm hoping that we have a really good crowd there Saturday. I'm not going to predict it one way or the other because I've been wrong. I have been wrong about attendance more than I've been wrong about which guy caught the ball in the corner of the end
zone. Well, have you heard any or felt any rumblings from the Marshall side? Has there been any?
I used to go on the Sunbelt message board a lot, and I was very active there. Yeah. And then I lost my password, and at any rate, I hadn't been there in a couple of years now. And so, no, it's true.
It's relatable.
I used to love to interact with fans and stuff, and I don't get to do that anymore. So no, I really haven't heard any rumblings about Marshall. I know that Marshall's one of the things I like about Marshall and Madison and ODU and those schools. App State, very much so, is they've got a fan base that's not afraid to get on an airplane and travel. One of the things that I've noticed about this league for as long as I've been covering it, our fan bases don't do nearly a good enough job of going to away games. They don't do nearly as good enough job.
No.
And those schools traditionally don't have a problem. Now you're coming from West Virginia to Louisiana, that's pretty tough drive if you're deciding to drive it. But I think Marshall's going to have some folks there. And I have a lot of respect for that fan base because I'm telling you, man, we have trouble sending a bunch of fans and vice versa to Southern Miss and South Alabama.
Sure.
Texas State, no, man, that's a 6-hour drive. Arkansas State, yeah, they're our rival, but man, it takes all day to get there.
I know.
So, I hope Marshall brings some folks. I think they will. And I know this. The Marshall fans that do come will be treated very well before the game at our tailgate area because one of the things that we try to do is we try to be extremely hospitable to our guests when they come to Cajun Field.
So you're going to apply them with food. You're going to apply them with beer. You're going to apply them with hospitality.
Yes, and then we're going to call them all sorts of names after kickoff. but we're going to treat them right before and after the game. we do have that reputation, and it's one that the Cajun fans have earned.
That's all we have for you there, Jay. I know we grilled you. We
Yeah.
always love having you on. Always love seeing you in person
You
there.
need to have me on about once a month. I'm just saying, especially when baseball season comes.
We can kick Shane right off this program, and you can
no. Look, let me tell you. I'm going to say I've met Shane one time.
Yeah.
Okay? When it comes to print media, nobody does as good a job as he does, and it's not close in our league. All right, nobody does as good a job in print media as Shane does for JMU.
Well, in our hearts, we have awarded him the Pulitzer. So I don't know if he's got one.
Is that a piano? Is that?
It's an accordion.
Oh, an accordion. Let's polka. No, I don't know Shane well, but I do read his stuff, and I think he's really good. Now, I don't know if he can open his mouth and talk at all. And so therefore, I don't know why he's on your damn podcast. But he can write now. He can write with the best of them.
We let him talk every now and then, don't we, Tibbs? It's in his contract. He has to say a little something.
Oh, yeah.
We try to. I mean, as long as it's not Arkansas State where Jeremy's over there fanboying out,
I do a lot of fanboy.
It's fine.
Jeremy, I got to tell you, you keep a smile on my face, especially during football season when you make your picks every week and you start because you don't take yourself all that seriously, which I think is great because nobody else takes you seriously either.
Absolutely not.
But it is so much fun. I have actually gone and go, wait a minute, I forgot to, and I'll just go to your site and scroll down until I find your stuff so I can read it every week. I enjoy your stuff a bunch.
Listen, Jay, don't make your bets on betonline.com until you've read my predictions for the games.
Well, you know what? You know what the great thing about working for Learfield is?
What's that?
Because look, I think a lot of us have these personalities, right? And all of a sudden, you can pick up your phone and place a bet, right?
Yeah.
Now, I've got enough of an addictive personality.
Yeah.
But I also have a contract with Learfield that says I cannot bet on college sports.
Wow.
And so therefore, I've never downloaded the app.
Good.
And I don't have to worry about it. Now, when I retire, that might be different. But no, I don't place a bet on FanDuel or Bet.com or anything else because I like my job.
Jay, clean living is why you're going to live forever.
Oh, no, I drink too much, dude.
However, our sponsors are going to make us cut that out and reword it to where he's like, I only download betonline.com.
I have a
but I don't use it.
And I love it.
I don't use
it. Well, thanks for coming, Jay. We do appreciate it. And yeah, maybe next month we'll be talking about that Cajuns championship with you.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't mind talking about that. You know, the one that we won in 2021 made me realize once again, winning's not easy. And to cherish wins when you get them. And playing in front of the home fans, I hope they get an opportunity to hoist the trophy. But win or lose, man, you win 10 games in a college football season, you've had a hell of a year.
Absolutely.